down. Now, the other thing we do need to do as we're bringing this over to the CNC router is we do need to lay out all of our pieces with dados and rabbets. So if we zoom in here, and this is my bottom piece, and if we look at the back of the bottom piece, that's going to tell us where those joints go. So I am 4 7/16 from the floor to the top of that dado. So I'm going to have to come, it doesn't matter which one's my floor, which side you want to start on. I'm going to come up 4 and space 7 divided by 16. And I need to find that node. Let's come down here and do it. Keep it straight. I'm going to go 4 space 7 divided by 16. Come back and find that node and draw it across. Now that's the top of the shelf. So I'm going to come back down 0.75. And this is going to be the bottom of the shelf. So that would be a dado in my piece of wood. So I'm going to do the same thing, up 4 7/16. And then, whoops, I want to make sure I'm in the right spot, and down all the way to the edge here. And then from there, I'm going to come down 0.75 and connect that back. Now, both of these are going to have a rabbet on top. So I'm going to come down 0.75 and draw this on. This represents the rabbet, 0.75. Oops, I went a little too far. So I'm going to come in here and erase the extra piece. Okay. So my bottoms have their joints on there, almost. We're going to come in a little bit closer here. And now I need to put that back groove on. We're going to come in a 1/4 inch, or sorry, come in a 1/2 inch, so 0.5. And then I'm going to take that and draw it all the way to the top. And then it's going to come over a 1/4 inch, 0.25. This is so the 1/4 inch backing can slide into the cabinet when we're done. So I need to make a mirror image. So if I'm on the top here, I'm going to come all the way to the bottom and go up 0.5 all the way to the top and up 0.25, and then take that all the way down to the bottom. So there's my 1/4 inch groove on both pieces. I have a mirrored piece, so I'll have a right and a left when I'm done. So now I'm going to come over and do the same thing to the top. So the top is going to have a rabbet on bottom and top. Instead of a dado like the bottom just had, we're going to have a rabbet up here and a rabbet down here. So we're going to start by drawing those in. And so I'm going to take and come in from this point, 0.75, and draw that down. And I'm going to come in from this end, 0.75, draw that down. Okay, now I might have to move some of these labelings if they moved on me when I started drawing. That's fine, we'll re-put them in when we're done. Now I'm going to also put in my grooves for the backing. So I'm going to come down 0.5. Actually, is that the edge? No, the edge is here. 0.5. And draw that all the way to the top. And I'm going to come down 0.25 for the groove. And then I'm going to do the same thing to the other side here. That does not look right. Let's try that again from this end. Up 0.5. That's going to make me zoom in. All right, so we're going to finish drawing our shelves on here. And if we look at the side view, And I'm going to zoom in on this view here because these are going to be important to us, how far up and away from the edge these are. And so I'm going to be working actually from this side over here. And you notice that this dimension is actually pulled from this side, and we're going to need that later on too. But so for now, I'm going to come to the very edge of this to the top and pull me a measurement. And I'm going to do the very bottom here to the top of that shelf. And now, generally speaking, we want these to sit a 1/16 of an inch lower than the face frame, and we should have drawn it that way, so that should be good. So I'm going to set my first one from the bottom of the cabinet on the left-hand side, looking at the back here. I'm 19 and 15/16. So if I'm looking, if this is the bottom and this is the top and this is the back, this would be my left-hand side. So I'm going to come up from the very bottom, 19 and space 15/16. And I'm going to find that node and draw down, straight down. And then I'm going to come over 0.75, back set 0.75, because that was the top of that shelf. And there's going to be that dado. Now this one should, if I zoom in, I don't even have to measure that because I drew these in the same position. So let's take a closer look here. I can see my start points are right in line with each other. So if I come over from here, I can actually just pull that down to all the way to the bottom to there, and maybe there all the way to the bottom of that. And then I could zoom in and delete these. Now, if your ends are not even, then that would not be in the correct place. So make sure your drawings are in the right location, and it makes it a little easier for setting that up. Now let's take a look at how far up our other one is. It's 37 and 7/16. So I'm going to come again from the bottom, and I'm going to come up 37 space 7 divided by 16, enter, and find that node. There it is. Come down. I'm going to just, these are lined up again. I'm going to draw it all the way down, and actually I didn't even go all the way to the bottom. So I'm going to go from here all the way down to that first line. And then I'm going to come back 3/4 of an inch because that's how thick the dado is. So 3 divided by 4. There it is. And all the way down. And now again, I can zoom in and delete this little line that does not go here because these are two separate projects or two separate pieces. So I'm going to zoom back in here. Sorry, my divider on my top half for those cabinets. Now this one's going to be a little bit more tricky because it depends on which side you're laying out. So now if I look at this cabinet here, I don't have anything over here that needs to be dadoed in, but on this side of the shelf, I do have some things that need to be dadoed in. So that's going to determine which side or where this piece is going. So if this is going to slide in, it doesn't matter. I'm going to just work off the bottom like I did here. And so my first dado is at 19 and 9/16. And I'm not going all the way to the bottom this time where this blue line is. I'm going to the bottom of this dado right here between these two green lines or green dots. So 19 and 1/16. So I'm going to take my pencil tool and I'm going to come up 19 and 9/16. It should be a little bit higher now. There it is. And I'm going to come all the way down to the edge. And that's the top line. So I'm going to come back down 3/4 and connect that back. And I notice down here that I have a little bit of a connector line that should not be here, right here. So I'm going to erase that while I'm in here. That is one piece, and this is one piece. And zoom out just a little bit more here. And we're going to pull from the bottom again, just to keep everything nice and the same. So we have the same measurements from the same place. I'm going to come to the bottom here, and I'm going to come all the way to the top shelf, which I have right there, 37 and 1/16. So this next one is 37 and 1/16 from the bottom. So I'm going to grab my pencil tool, and I'm going to come down 37 and 1/16. It should be right about in the center of that again. Click there, and I'm going to come back 3/4 because that's the thickness of that shelf. There we go. So my divider should be set up as well. Now my divider is a little bit shorter, and the reason for that is there's no back groove in this. So that 3/4 between this first line here and the back of this cabinet is gone because the backing needs to slide all the way past this as we do that. All right, I was noticing on here that I have made a mistake. I have grooves or dados in both of the side pieces for the upper cabinet. And if I look here, I only need grooves in one side. The other side is nice and open. And so I want to make sure I delete the right one. I want those grooves to be on the left side of the back. So if I'm looking at the back, this would be the left side and the groove. So I don't need the grooves down here on the bottom. And I can just erase those two dados and then paint bucket the rest back in to correct that grain. So a simple fix on that one. We just don't need both of those on there. All right, now what we're going to do is finish putting the joints on. So typically on a drawer, we have our joints drawn on the front and backs, and they're 3/4 of an inch wide. So if I take my line and actually, you could use the box tool as well. Either one is going to be fine. If you want to use the rectangle tool, you could pull from there down to there. And you can see in the bottom under dimensions, it tells us the size. So I want to be 8 by 0.75. And that's not going to snap in. There we go. I had to get rid of that little squiggly line. And over here, I'm going to do the same thing. Draw a box down, and that should be 8 and 0.75. And we're going to need a bottom groove for all of these. So I'm going to take and zoom in a little bit so I can see a little bit better. I'm going to come up a 1/2 inch, just like the backing of the project, up 0.5. And then I'm going to draw a line all the way across. That was 36. And then I'm going to come up a 1/4 of an inch, because that's how thick the bottom is, up 0.25. And I'm going to draw that line all the way across at 36. And so that top piece should now have the sides, or rabbets for the sides and a dado for the bottom. Now we're going to focus on these bottom two. And I'm going to come up again a 1/2 inch, 0.5. And I'm going to take that line all the way across. Since these are all lined up, I'm going to come up 0.25 now. That's how thick the bottom is. And whoops, I clicked too early. And again, I can come in here and delete between these two because that line is not going to go between there. And I can zoom back out because I am now done with that top sheet, with the exception of the wood grain. So you can either do that now or you can go back at the end, but I do want you to have the wood grain painted on there. So when you're cutting these out, we know which way the grain runs. You can see right there, I put the wood grain on the dimension line. I want to make sure I don't do that. So I undid that with Control or Command Z, and then I just bucket filled that. And you can actually leave the joints blue. You don't have to make the joints wood color. We can just leave the wood that would be left over wood color. It will help us to easily see the joints in there. So now we're going to back out and look at the next sheet and see what needs to have joints on here. And so we're going to have those on the bottom as well. So I'm going to zoom in real close, and I'm going to come up again from the edge, 0.5. Draw that line. I'm going to go all the way across because these are lining up for me. And then I'm going to come up 0.25. And if these were not exactly in the same plane, then we would not be able to do that. Up 0.5 and all the way across. And then I'm going to come up 0.25 and find that node and bring that across. And again, just like on our last drawing or last view, whoops, I'm going to zoom in real close here and delete that line that goes through. So So one there and there and there and there. So what other parts do we have? Oh, the front of the drawer gets that rabbet. So that was down and over. I'm going to let go and I'm going to come down here to the dimension side. I'm going to delete that back half. So 8 inches, comma, and I'm going to put 0.75, enter, and it should snap in. Over an 8, and that's already come to the right size, so that's good. And then we're going to come over to the other side and do the same thing. Using that rectangle tool, it's up to you. You could draw each line or you could use the rectangle tool. That's up to you. Again, down to the dimension and put 0.75. Okay, so there is my drawing. When I put that last dado or rabbit in, these kind of got out of whack. So I'm going to reposition them with now, if you remember from cabinet making one's drawers, 2 of these are going to need to have that groove cut off. And so I drew them on here and we can cut them off later. Or you could actually come in on the drawer back, right? The drawer back should be 3/4 of an inch shorter. So if we say, okay, these 2 are my back because those other 2 on the other drawing are my fronts, the back is going to have the bottom cut off. And the reason for that is so the bottom can slide in and out. You can change it if it ever gets broken, dirty, damaged, or you can slide it in later. So that would simply, once we have it on there, we can delete that line, just come in here and it should be right to that line. And that way we don't have to cut it off later. If we leave it how it was, then we'll have to cut it off later. So I'm going to come in and erase that as well. And that's going to change the name. Whoops, I erased that. That's going to change the name to specifically be my drawer back because I cut that off shorter. So drawer backs. Okay. I would recommend, it's going to save you less time later if you take that time and draw that or cut that off now on the router rather than cut it off on the table saw later. So that drawer front, that's going to be a front now, not a front or back because of that. And that's going to need some drawings on there as well. So we're going to come in with our rectangle tool. And that's going to be 8 by 0.75. And over here, that's going to be 8 by 0.75. We could also draw the bottom groove that way. We just need a starting point of up a 1/2 inch, 0.5, which is right there. And then I can take my rectangle tool and come all the way across. It doesn't matter how big I put it right now because when I see down here 36 by 0.25, enter, and it snaps in, keeping that original place I pulled from pinned in place. So there are my drawer pieces. And again, while we're here, we need to bucket fill them. The grain of the plywood should be going side to side. And the bottom of the cabinet here is also going to need a groove. Just like the sides got, we want a stopping point for our plywood backing to sit in. So you can do that either way, the rectangle tool or pencil by pencil. I'm going to come down 0.5, then take the rectangle tool and come all the way across. And I'm going to make that 39.25 by 0.75. Enter. Nope, I did that wrong. It should be 0.25. 0.25. Enter. And there that is. Okay, that looks good. which other ones are going to need this? This would be the cabinet bottom. The cabinet top bottom should also have this same groove cut in there. So let's zoom into this, and we can come down a 1/2 inch. And I'm going to pull my rectangle tool from that line over the other side and then make it say 39 1/4 by 0.25. Okay. And now the tops of these pieces are going to be where the bottom or the backing slides into. So I have not accounted for that yet. And that's going to be 3/4 of an inch less. And so if we take 15 1/8 minus 3/4 would be 14 7/8. So, or 14 3/8. I can take this line and move this down. I'm going to click it and I'm just going to pull it the direction I want to go, 0.75. And 14 3/8 is where it ends up. So that's going to leave a little gap so that we can slide the back into. So again, if we can make those changes now, that way we don't have to do it while or after we cut it on the router. So again, I'm going to take this line because this is the top. Oh, it's the bottom. I did that the wrong way. This is now going to be the top. Same part, same size. This is going to be the bottom, top. And what that's going to allow me to do is, because I already have that groove drawn on the other one. So what I'm going to do now is just lower this one again, 3/4 of an inch. That's going to leave me room to slide that in. So I'm going to grab the move tool and pick a corner and pull it down 0.75. And now that is the right size. And I just need to relabel this piece, which is moved anyways. I don't like its current location. So I'm going to just redo that right here. And this was the bottom. The other thing we're going to need to do is have a dado in the top and bottom of the cabinet. And that is going to be for this divider to be attached on the back piece. We see this divider going top to bottom, and we can see its length is 54 3/8. But what we're going to need to know precisely is how far over from the edge. So I'm going to come up here from the end of the rabbet over to the first line of the dado. And that's going to be 13 1/2. And that would be the same at top and bottom. So if I come over here, I want to make sure I'm getting this on the right side. So this is the bottom, and the shelf was on the left side here. So I need to reverse it around. I'm going to have that over here on the right side of this piece. And I'm going to come in 13, what do we say, 1/2, 13 1/2. So I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to come in 13.5. And that was to the first line, and that's going to go all the way across. And then the second line was 0.75 over from that because the plywood is 3/4 of an inch. And it should be the same down here. This one doesn't matter. It's non-directional because this one has a groove in it in the back. This one does not have that. So 13.5 down. And I'm going to come over 0.75 and complete that groove. If you have any questions on how to draw the plywood view or lay out any of your pieces, please talk to your instructor and they will help you get these laid out.